The most important moment in the life of a Rule of Two Sith Lord is the moment when they have the opportunity to finally kill their master. Their lives have been leading to this single moment in time, and while some do fail, most pass either due to having meticulously planned their encounter, or seize their moment of triumph without hesitation, without remorse. The day that Palpatine killed his master was the latter, as he had gotten Plagueis drunk and planned on just leaving him on the couch to sleep it off. But the dark side of the Force had other plans, and the Force whispered in Sidious's ear, coerced him into taking the mantle of the Dark Lord right now, killing the mad Sith scientist as he slept. But one of the biggest speculations surrounding this moment is what would happen if Plagueis woke up in time to defend himself. Who would win if Sidious had to fight his master head on? Well, students and scholars of the Force, it is time for us to open a holocron from the archives and discover what would happen if Darth Plagueis was given a fair chance to defend himself from Sidious. And guys, we have comments from the author of the Plagueis novel, so stay tuned. The question of Plagueis versus Sidious is a very intricate one. Every time we address a master versus apprentice scenario, the master has a distinct advantage, knowing intimately how their apprentice operates, everything they know. But Palpatine is cunning, which has always been his best trait. We cannot shove aside the fact that Palpatine technically conquered the galaxy without any Force powers at all. It was all through careful manipulation and utilization of intermediaries. Palpatine played the Jedi as fools, and they became pawns in his game. He knew how to manipulate even the most powerful of individuals, and work every situation to his advantage. By the time Sidious even needed to take out his lightsaber, he had already won. Mace Windu, the Jedi Council, and even Yoda were powerless to stop what had already been put in motion. But to add insult to injury, Palpatine constantly proves his power in the Force as well, and that even they cannot stop him in a simple fight. A fight that ultimately is meaningless. This is how Palpatine takes Jedi souls. His knowledge of the dark side and refinement over Force lightning puts him as the most powerful Force wielder of his day, a title he would keep until the day of his defeat. At the lightsaber, Sidious fought like a brutal animal. A master of the 7 forms of lightsaber combat, he may have preferred Form 7 Juyo, but he constantly switched his form mid-fight so that there was no way an opponent could gain an advantage over him. And when his blade was drawn, he unleashed the furious storm he kept under lock and key, and would be transformed into a force of nature, a hurricane of blinding speed and crushing darkness. But is that enough to stop Plagueis? By the time of his death, Plagueis had actually reached his prime. The author of the Plagueis novel, James Luceno, was under the impression that the Sith Lord was one of the most powerful Sith that had ever lived. Of course, following the standards set by the Rule of Two, this would be proper and would make sense. Plagueis was the penultimate Sith before the fruition and completion of the grand plan, and although his combat feats are few and far from in between, when power scaling Darth Plagueis, it becomes strikingly apparent that very few Sith Lords, even Darth Bane, ever reached this level of power. We've already done a full holocron listing just how powerful Plagueis was, but we'll restate a couple of his greatest moments for the sake of cohesion. Some of Plagueis' greatest feats in the Force happened when he was unarmed and had his throat slit. Following an assassination attempt, Plagueis found his heart in active failure, and yet, he still came out on top of this engagement, facing a small army of assassins trained to fight Force wielders. But here we have one of his most impressive Force feats. He unleashes a wave of energy which literally atomized 6 of the targets attacking him at once. Again, he atomized them. This Starkiller level of display only scratches the surface of what Plagueis was capable of though. Despite his vocal cords being mostly severed, he was able to unleash a Force scream, one that burst the eardrums of his targets. His Force lightning could boil the blood of his victims and turn their bones to ash. He could refine his physical body to the point of punching straight through armor, smashing bones with single swipes of his legs and feet. And he could summon Force storms without needing to charge up the ability first. Conjuring one was as easy as a Jedi could use a mind trick to Plagueis. But the thing about Plagueis was that despite his tall and elegant form, the Dark Lord was deceptively quick and agile. Force speed was one of his greatest abilities, as he would employ it often in combat to close the distance between himself and a target, delivering rapid-fire punches much like Mace Windu did in the Clone Wars TV series. In one of his more outlandish feats, Plagueis was able to skip across an entire continent of Baldemnik within an afternoon when he was stranded there without a ship. These are all combat abilities, which to Plagueis were more of an afterthought. This isn't accounting for where the Sith Lord was truly powerful in his scientific achievement. We need to mention that he nearly mastered command over the midichlorians, or how his secret laboratory became a dark side nexus due to how much power he was using there, or that he and Sidious together conducted a ritual that tipped the very balance of the scales of the Force cosmically. But even with all of that power, Plagueis was not able to save himself from Sidious. Sidious, who meticulously targeted his respirator to stop his master from breathing. Plagueis woke up once this occurred and attempted to fight back, conjuring a force storm to stop Palpatine. But by this point, Sidious was already force choking the life out of him, watching his eyes grow darker. Plagueis had even attempted to summon his own midichlorians to save himself, but was unable to do so. Sidious's power by this point had become too heavy, but of course, had Plagueis' respirator remained undamaged, Plagueis would have awoken in time and given a proper chance to his apprentice. So, of the two Dark Lords, who would win? Who would win on even ground? Well, we could make a full debate with a back and forth challenge of the two Sith Lords' strengths and craft a scenario for this fight. But thankfully, we have been blessed with the answer already. James Luceno, who again authored the Darth Plagueis novel, stated the winner of such a contest in an interview on Facebook. The question put to him was, do you feel that, had it come to a contest of lightsabers or force powers, Sidious would have prevailed anyway? To which Luceno answered, if it had come to a duel, I think Plagueis may have found a way to undermine his apprentice. The winner is Darth Plagueis. This answer is great, but it is not straightforward. Despite us listing the feats of Plagueis, none of those really matter when fighting Darth Sidious. By the time of his death, the two men were very close in power. It's unlikely that they would have settled things with the lightsaber at all, as it was beneath them. They were probably dead even in this category as well, since Plagueis was a gifted duelist in his own right, and Plagueis found lightsaber combat to be a tedious affair. This would mean they would have undoubtedly settled things with the Force, where Plagueis at this time, according to many, was the superior. Though what's interesting is that James Luceno uses the word undermine and not the word overpower. This further indicates that the two were much closer in power at this point in time. So close in fact, that Plagueis would have had to outsmart Sidious instead of crushing him with strength alone. This is no simple task. Sidious is extremely cunning, though Plagueis was considered slightly more intelligent. However, this also came with another drawback. He was extremely overconfident. Speaking of Sidious, remember, this is him in the Phantom Menace. Most of his feats that we listed earlier was Revenge of the Sith and onward. Sidious was actually almost several times weaker than what we're used to, and when he killed Darth Plagueis, he was a shadow of what he would become. But when the death finally occurred, Palpatine's power increased several orders of magnitude. But we ourselves cannot accurately explain this. This comes directly from the Darth Plagueis novel, and speaks of what Sidious experienced after killing his master. A tremor took a hold of the planet. Sprung from death, it unleashed itself in a powerful wave, at once burrowing deep into the world's core and radiating through its saccharine atmosphere to shake the stars themselves. At the quake's epicenter stood Sidious, one elegant hand vised on the burnished sill of an expansive translucency. A vessel filled suddenly to bursting, the force so strong with him that he feared he may disappear into it, never to return again. But the moment didn't constitute an ending so much as a true beginning, long overdue. It was less a transformation than an intensification, a gravitic shift. A welter of voices, near and far, present and from eons past, drowned his thoughts. Raised in praise, the voices proclaimed his reign and cheered the inauguration of a new order. Yellow eyes lifted to the night sky. He saw the trembling stars flare, and in the depth of his being, he felt the power of the dark side anoint him. From this passage, it sounds as if Palpatine may have gotten something like a 10x increase in his power. All the power of Darth Plagueis went to him, as the dark side congratulated him on his ascension, and what was once Darth Plagueis' power was now Sidious's. The swelter of voices raising in praise from eons past must be a hint and a description of the ancient Sith Lords. Ancients who despised Plagueis for not believing in the mysticism of the Force, and for dismissing their presence as spirits and ghost stories. Sidious was given a gift by the dark side for his commitment and his action, and for that, he increased his power so substantially that he was worried that his mortal form could not contain it. From that point forward, there was no one who could stop him, except for, of course, the Jedi Chosen One. So the answer to the long-anticipated question of who would win between Palpatine and Plagueis, pitting each Sith against one another, is always fun because we know that they're always going to go all out, attempting to prove themselves, to prove that they're still the superior. This means we can actually calculate all of their feats as being applicable to a fight. But this is extremely interesting. The fact that Plagueis would have actually defeated Palpatine at this point in time, but not through saber skill, or even gifts and powers in the Force, but through subterfuge, manipulation, intelligence. Palpatine knew all of this, and because of that, Palpatine was very careful. It is likely that neither would have been satisfied with the outcome had it come to a conventional duel. But of course, what do you think, my friends? Do you agree or disagree with James Luceno on this matter? And in your opinion, what would have happened had Plagueis been awake and his respirator remained undamaged? As always, thank you so much for joining us in our archives today, my friends, and may the Force be with you.